Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are opening up a file that's, well, it's not just politically charged, it's deeply personal and, frankly, devastating. We're tracking the extraordinary and often really shocking career of former DEA agent Hector Berrellez. It's all detailed in his memoir, The Last Narc.
And Berrellez's journey, it's truly unique. I mean, this guy went from being a street cop in South Tucson to leading Operation Leyenda. And that's arguably the most significant, the biggest murder investigation in the entire history of the DEA.
Yeah. So our mission here, for you listening, is really to act as your guide through his, frankly, astonishing claims. We're going to trace this thread of corruption he says he uncovered.
And it's a thread that runs from the darkest corners of the Mexican cartels, right into the heart of the U.S. intelligence community, according to him.
And what immediately sets the stakes, right from the get-go, is something Berrellez points out years after his own investigation wrapped up. He's looking at the extradition of, well, one of the world's most notorious drug kingpins, Joaquin Chapo Guzman.
Right, El Chapo. And he sees this huge, glaring omission.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. El Chapo faced 17 indictments in the U.S., 17, covering, everything from drug trafficking, money laundering, the works.
Right, all the usual stuff.
Yet, as Berrellez observes, and he's got this grim certainty about it, not one single indictment included conspiracy to murder agent Enrique Kiki Camarena.
Wow.
And this is the very crime Berrellez claims he definitively pinned on key players, including potentially Chapo's circle during Operation Leyenda.
So that silence, that specific lack of a charge, that's really the core of what we're digging into today. Berrellez sees it as proof.
Proof that Operation Leyenda, even though, on paper it sort of solved the murder by identifying some players, it ultimately failed its bigger mission.
Yeah. For him, the tragic, compromised way Kiki's case was handled, it becomes this perfect little microcosm, really, of the entire completely misguided war on drugs.
Right. Where, in his view, the truth, the actual full truth, was sacrificed in the end. Sacrificed to protect something or someone far more powerful than just the cartel leaders themselves.
Okay. So let's unpack this journey, which has to start at the beginning, right?
Okay.
With the deeply personal origin story of this particular lawman.
Absolutely. To really get Berrellez, his drive, his relentlessness, you first have to understand this foundational sense of betrayal he carries. It's deep. He talks about his antepasado, his ancestors. He suggests betrayal is literally etched into his identity. It goes all the way back to 1846, Spanish California.
It's a really powerful, almost like you said, mythological starting point. His ancestor, Nicholas Antonio Berrellez, he shows up unarmed to meet Kit Carson's bear flaggers.
Yeah.
He's trusting, in some kind of understanding of peace.
Yeah, like a parlay.
Exactly.
Right.
Instead, Carson's men just execute him and two of his nephews. Cold blood. And apparently, Carson's order was chilling. We have no room for prisoners.
Wow. And Berrellez sees that as this generational wound. He calls it the original sin of betrayal. It sort of sets the stage, doesn't it, for a man who, even though he becomes a federal agent,
right,
he possesses this inherent, deep-seated suspicion of official stories, of political authority. It's almost baked in.
And his own start wasn't exactly straightforward either. He grew up in South Tucson, Arizona. He was actually born in the U.S., but then briefly deported to Mexico with his mother.
Who was an American citizen herself.
Exactly, before they came back. And his early life, it sounds pretty rebellious. He talks about being caught setting fires, getting this intense spanking after the police dropped him off home, and apparently vowing right then and there, I will never be a cop.
Yeah, famous last words, right. But what pushed him towards it eventually was personal tragedy. His younger brother developed this crippling heroin addiction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, introduced by a Cuban dealer in their neighborhood. And Berrellez realized, if he couldn't protect his own brother directly, maybe he could go after the source, the dealers, the suppliers.
So that's the drive.
That's the drive. He joins the South Tucson police, rises fast, becomes the youngest homicide detective, and he discovers he has this knack for undercover work, develops this persona, Manny. It just came naturally to him.
That's the crucible then. That mix of personal motivation and natural skill that pushes him into the Arizona Department of Safety's drug unit.
Right. But success in that world, well, it comes with a heavy price. He calls it La Sombra, the shadow.
The shadow.
It's the emotional toll, the psychological weight of the violence he had to inflict, even when it was technically justified in the line of duty.
He tried to manage it at first.
Yeah, he says he tried to compartmentalize it, rationalize some early kills as just part of the job. But there was a critical turning point, Riverside, California. During a bust targeting Sinaloan traffickers,
Okay.
he makes this split-second tactical error. He grabs a backpack full of heroin, which means his dominant hand is occupied.
Wow.
Right at the moment, one of the traffickers, a cowboy, draws his weapon.
Oh, man. So the guy yells something.
Yeah, the man yells, "Many son los perros. Many, they're the dogs." Cops.
Yeah.
And Berrellez reacts instantly, just empties his clip.
He survived.
He survived. But the aftermath, the unrelenting regret, knowing he'd killed a man who, it turned out, hadn't actually fired, that created this profound psychological scar. La Sombra really took hold then.
And that internal damage comes out later, right?
Yeah.
During a psych review.
It really does. When the examiner asks him, point blank, "Why did you shoot the cowboy 10 times?" Berrellez, completely under the influence of La Sombra, gives this shocking, incredibly dark reply.
What did he say?
"Because I ran out of bullets."
Jeez. That sounds like pure bravado, but you're saying it's something else.
It's darker than bravado, it sounds like it, but he frames it as this desperate cry. It shows how much that one event had just consumed him, how deep the shadow went.
Okay, so this extreme internal complexity, this shadow, it's actually key to understanding how he could function so effectively undercover.
I think so, yeah. And you see the absurd, high-stakes nature of his life perfectly in that famous story, the naked buy bust in Texas.
Right, with the police captain.
El Laredo police captain Lou Munoz, Berrellez is targeting him. And Munoz is so incredibly paranoid about hidden wires that he demands Berrellez, his informant Mary, and eventually himself, stripped completely naked.
Completely.
Like Berrellez makes the point, socks and underwear too, nothing left.
Wow. Just picture that scene. 3 people, stark naked in a room, trying to conduct a major drug deal. All because the paranoia about being recorded was stronger than, well, anything else.
It's insane. And Berrellez, knowing he wasn't wired, totally flips the power dynamic. He insists Munoz strip down too. If I'm doing it, you're doing it.
Pure psychological game.
Absolutely. And he used that absolutely ridiculous situation to cement Munoz's trust, then later busts him, trying to sell him 5 kilos of heroin. His ability to just roll with the insanity and maintain cover was phenomenal. He even used his past life sometimes.
Oh, yeah, like with
Well, he used to play guitar in a rock band back in the day called the Beethovens.
the Beethoven, seriously.
Sure, seriously. And he used that to convince another suspicious lieutenant that he wasn't a cop. The lieutenant was skeptical, thought Manny was too smooth, maybe DEA.
So what did he do?
They're in a bar. Berrellez picks up a guitar and just rips out this flawless rendition of La Bamba, totally convincing the guy he's just this gangster musician type, not some fed. It showed he had the cultural background,
That's incredible. So this reputation for confidence, resourcefulness, maybe a bit of craziness that gets him noticed.
Definitely. That's why he gets transferred to Los Angeles, much bigger stage, even though he got a kind of shaky performance review right before that.
Oh, why was that?
He filed this unauthorized report about a supposed assassination plot against the mayor of Douglas, Arizona, went outside the proper channels, but LA needed guys like him.
And in LA, he really leans into the persona.
Oh, yeah. He defines his Manny persona there as not just a dealer, but a legitimate gangster and flamboyant playboy. Big money, big risk.
And his biggest score in LA, that was taking down Thomas Tootie Reese, right? The West Coast kingpin.
That's the one. Reese was notoriously careful. Very hard to get close to if you were a new supplier. So Berrellez had to devise this really spectacular, really risky plan. It was all about showing off immense Sinaloan wealth.
Okay, how'd they do that?
The plan was, well, audacious. Stage a completely fake $3 million black tar heroin show deal.
A fake deal.
Totally fake. But it had to look absolutely real. They booked this $1,500 a night executive suite at the Beverly Hilton. The goal wasn't actually selling drugs to Reese initially.
All right.
It was to convince Reese's bodyguards. They were the real gatekeepers. Convince them that Manny was the real deal, a major player with deep connections and unlimited product.
So it was all theater.
Pure theater. Berrellez brought in his team of trusted Hispanic agents, decked them out in expensive ostrich skin boots, gold Rolexes.
The whole 9 yards.
Oh, yeah. Had them visibly carrying AK-47s. He said the tension during that fake deal felt completely real. Everyone was playing their part perfectly.
And it worked.
It's like a charm. Reese's bodyguards were totally impressed. Blown away by the apparent wealth, the sheer volume of heroin Manny seemed to control. They went back and vouched for him.
And then Reese's own greed took over.
Exactly. As Berrellez notes, Reese's fatal flaw was totally predictable, just insatiable greed. A couple weeks later, Reese himself approaches Manny directly, tries to cut out his own middleman.
Oh, bad move.
Terrible move, trying to get a bigger slice of the profit for himself, and that move led directly to his arrest. Berrellez learned early on, for these kingpins, greed was always the most dependable vulnerability you could exploit.
So after that big success in L.A., Berrellez gets deployed straight into the lion's den, basically. Mazatlan, Sinaloa.
Yep, the absolute epicenter of the cartel universe back then. He arrives as the resident agent in charge, the RAC, in the place he calls the cradle of drug kingpins.
We're talking Gallardo, Rafael Caro Quintero, El Chapo is coming up, El Mayo.
All of them. They're home turf. And this move, it fundamentally shifts his whole perspective. He immediately adopts this core premise that just defined his entire time there.
Which was?
Mexico is a narco state. Full stop. Corruption is absolute, top to bottom. So his operating rule became working with the Mexican Federal Judicial Police, the MFJP, was essentially by proxy working with the cartels. Because in his view, all of Mexico is corrupt. You couldn't trust anyone in an official uniform.
And he saw proof of that pretty quickly.
Immediately. He recounts this incident, Los Talos Sangrientos, the bloody stalks. He gets called out to what's reported as a cartel shootout.
Okay.
But when he gets there, he finds 6 bodies, all stripped of their shoes and socks, a sign of humiliation or theft by the killers, and each one killed with a single, precise headshot, execution style.
Not a shootout at all?
Not even close. It was
Right.
clearly an extrajudicial execution, probably by corrupt police or military, disguised as cartel violence. And Berrellez was just expected to write the report confirming the official lie, maintain the narrative.
Wow. What a welcome.
Right. That incident just showed him immediately the system wasn't about uncovering truth. It was about obfuscating it, hiding the real power dynamics.
And the danger was just constant, right? Not just at work, but at home, too.
Oh, absolutely. He and his family lived in this heavily secured mansion, needed 24-hour armed guards because there was literally gunfire in the neighborhood every single night, constant tension.
But amidst all that deadly, serious chaos,
Yeah.
he writes a lot about a monkey.
Slight chuckle. Yeah. His most bizarre and weirdly consistent source of torment came from inside his own luxurious home. This demonic spider monkey named, well, he called him fucking Charlie.
Fucking Charlie,
Thank you.
ruthlessly.
That's what he called him. And look, you might think, oh, it's just a monkey story, but Berrellez spends real time detailing this creature's sheer malevolence. It sounds like fucking Charlie was a genuine psychological menace.
What did it do?
Oh, everything. Killed the expensive koi fish in the pond just for fun, learned how to break out of his cage constantly, threw Berrellez's clothes into the swimming pool,
Yeah.
and most infamously,
Right.
he would apparently sit in his cage during DEA parties when Berrellez's wife was trying to entertain guests and just conspicuously masturbate.
Oh, my God. No.
Total power move by the monkey, just maximum embarrassment for his wife. Berrellez hated this monkey with a burning passion.
It sounds like it's almost a perfect metaphor, isn't it?
Wow.
This symbol of the untamable, relentless chaos of Mexico right there in his supposedly secure home, and he couldn't control it.
Exactly. He admits his hatred was so intense he genuinely fantasized about taking fucking Charlie up in a DEA plane and just violently throwing him out over the Pacific.
Jeez.
It's a horrifying image, but it really speaks to the immense emotional pressure cooker he was living in down there, the sheer frustration.
So he channeled that intensity, that frustration, into his work, focusing on Gallardo.
Absolutely. He became obsessed with capturing Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, the guy widely believed to be the architect of Kiki Camarena's murder. But to do that in Mexico, he had to make one of those dangerous, necessary alliances.
Who did he team up with?
A powerful Mexican army general named Jesus Gutierrez Rebollo. Now, Rebollo wasn't motivated by justice. Not really. He was motivated by a deep, personal vendetta.
Against who?
Against Gallardo's chief enforcer, a guy named Manuel Salcido Uzeta, better known as Cochi Loco. Turns out Cochi Loco had murdered Rebollo's best friend.
Ah, so that gave the general the personal motivation Berrellez needed to get his cooperation.
Precisely. It was a shared enemy situation. This alliance led them directly to Gallardo's uncle, a guy known only as El Cuchillo, the knife.
Where'd they find him?
They cornered him at a Sanborn's restaurant, like a Denny's. Berrellez jams his .45 into the guy's ribs. And El Cuchillo's immediate reaction isn't denial, it's a boast about protection. He says something like, my nephew and I, we're paying for protection. We're paid up all the way to Los Pinos.
Los Pinos, that's the Mexican White House, right?
Exactly. Directly implicating the highest levels of the Mexican government. It confirmed Berrellez's deepest suspicions about the whole system being rotten.
But did that claim save El Cutillo?
Not a chance. Not from General Rebolo's swift, brutal form of justice.
What happened?
Berrellez's men just yanked El Cuchillo out of the restaurant, dragged him into a nearby sugarcane field. Bang. Single shot. Executed him right there.
Wow.
And later, Rebolo presents Berrellez with El Cuchillo's valuable Rolex watch, like a trophy, and delivers this chilling message. You are no longer in Los Angeles, agent. You are in Mexico. And we do things the Mexican way.
That's his official welcome to the real rules of the game down there.
His baptism by fire into operating in a completely lawless state, where official rank meant nothing compared to cartel connections and brutal pragmatism.
And that kind of extreme violence, it just became part of the background noise.
Pretty much. That experience really underlines the constant adrenaline, the life or death stakes. There's another incredible story from the Limoncito gunfight.
Limoncito, what was that?
A massive hours-long firefight. Berrellez and his team against maybe 19 cartel gunmen. They'd stumbled onto this huge cache, 20 tons of marijuana and a ton of pure cocaine.
20 tons of weed and a ton of coke. That's huge.
Massive. So the cartel fought hard to protect it. Berrellez and his guys were pinned down, really fighting for their lives. He remembers this one agent got hit badly, shot in the chest.
Oh, man.
And the wounded agent, lying there, asks for a cigarette. Someone lights one for him, puts it in his mouth. He takes a drag, and a little plume of smoke drifts out of the bullet hole in his chest.
You're kidding.
Not kidding. According to Berrellez, it was this moment of such absurd, grim reality. It actually prompted this wave of gallows humor among the whole team. Like, what else can you do but laugh in a situation like that? It was a crucial psychological defense.
Wow, and Berrellez himself, he got out of the firefight briefly.
Yeah, his lead agent, Jim White, managed to drive the wounded guys back to the highway in their shot-up SUV. But Berrellez felt he needed to get back into the fight, support the guys still pinned down.
So what did he do? Walk back?
No. Gets better. He flags down a random taxi driver on the highway. A taxi. Throws the driver $7,000 in cash, a fortune down there. Basically says, here's for your car. Jumps in and drives this beat-up taxi, full speed, right back into the middle of the raging gunfight.
That is straight out of an action movie.
Totally. And Berrellez notes, for that cab driver, getting $7,000 American cash for a cab that was obviously about to be completely destroyed. Probably the best day of his life.
Yeah, I guess so.
It was just this strange, brief moment of lightness, Berrellez says. A profound sense of gratitude just to be alive after surviving something where death seemed almost certain.
So this intense, high-risk world, it must have felt completely disconnected from, normal life or politics back in the U.S.
Completely. Although occasionally those two worlds would collide in these really surreal ways, which kind of highlighted the disconnect.
Like what?
Like the moment he calls meeting the Gipper.
The Gipper, you mean?
President Ronald Reagan, yeah. Berrellez had been working security tirelessly at this major international drug summit held in Mexico, making sure all the dignitaries were safe. And afterwards, he's just standing in the hotel lobby, probably exhausted. A Secret Service agent comes up, pulls him aside, and suddenly he's shaking hands with President Reagan.
Wow.
Reagan thanked him personally for his service, for his work on the summit, and Berrellez describes this moment for him, the poor Mexican kid from South Tucson shaking the hand of the President of the United States. It was just the absolute peak of professional validation. Felt incredible.
That must have been amazing. A real high point.
Absolutely. But then comes the immediate classic Berrellez reality check.
Oh, what happened?
He gets home, all pumped up, ready to tell his wife about this incredible moment meeting the president.
Yeah.
Only to find his young daughter crying her eyes out. Why? Because fucking Charlie, the evil spider monkey, had apparently slapped her across the face and successfully stolen her ice cream cone.
Oh, no. You can't make this stuff up.
Right. The sheer mundane chaos of his domestic life instantly crashes down on the international prestige. 1 minute shaking hands with Reagan, the next minute dealing with a kleptomaniac, abusive monkey. That was his life in Mazatlan.
Okay, so his time in Mazatlan, it ends pretty abruptly, doesn't it, when the danger gets way too personal?
Extremely personal. The cartels actually attempt to kidnap his wife and daughter. That's the final straw. He and his family are immediately evacuated back to Tucson for their safety.
But he wasn't happy being stateside.
No, he was miserable, felt sidelined, restless, angry. But then he gets the call. DEA Administrator Jack Lawn himself.
The big boss.
The big boss. with a new mandate. Berrellez is to lead a brand new, aggressive, no-holds-barred investigation into the murder of Kiki Camarena, Operation Leyenda. Legend.
This was it. The assignment he felt he was born for, right? Given his background, his experiences?
Exactly. And he wastes absolutely no time signaling that this investigation is going to be different. His very first major move is incredibly bold.
What did he do?
He orchestrates the extraterritorial arrest. Basically, a cross-border snatch of Ruben Zuno Arce.
Zuno Arce. He owned the house where Kiki was tortured.
That's the one, the infamous killing house on Lope de Vega Street in Guadalajara. And not just that, Zuno Arce was a major narco-politico. His brother-in-law was a former president of Mexico.
So arresting him was a massive statement, directly challenging the Mexican political establishment.
Huge statement. Zuno was brought into the U.S. technically as a material witness. And the political blowback was immediate and intense.
Also,
A U.S. congressman from Texas, Albert Garza Bustamante, actually shows up at the San Antonio airport where Zuno is being held, demands his immediate release, starts talking about political impropriety, diplomatic incidents.
trying to pull rank.
Totally trying to pull rank. But Berrellez wasn't having any of it. He gets on the phone with the supervising customs officer who's dealing with the congressman and basically threatens to personally drive down there and arrest the congressman himself for obstruction of justice if he doesn't back off immediately. He literally starts counting into the phone, 1, 2.
Did it work?
The congressman's line went dead. He backed down. Berrellez is making it crystal clear. Operation Leyenda was operating with one single-minded goal: justice for Kiki Camarena, regardless of political connections or potential fallout.
Okay, so the gloves are off. But as he starts digging into the actual case, the accepted story, he starts seeing problems.
Big problems, almost immediately. The official narrative, the one that had been floating around for years, was that Kiki was targeted and killed solely because he discovered those huge marijuana plantations at Rancho Buffalo.
Right, that was the story. The bust cost the cartel millions.
That was the story. But Berrellez found 3 critical flaws in that narrative, 3 things that just didn't add up, and strongly suggested to him that a high-level cover-up was already in place. He called it engañados, the deceived. Like, the whole premise was wrong.
Okay, let's break those down, because these really do shatter that established narrative. Flaw number 1, the blindfold.
Yes. Think about how cartel operations usually work, especially executions. When they kill an informant, a rival, they typically don't blindfold them.
Why not?
They want the victim to see who's killing them. It's a message. Intimidation. Power. The fact that Kiki was blindfolded when he was abducted suggested to Berrellez that the initial intent probably wasn't fatal.
More like an interrogation. Snatch and grab for information.
Exactly. Purely for information extraction, at least at first. Which leads to the second major flaw. The interrogation tapes themselves.
Right, the infamous tapes of Kiki being tortured.
Their very existence was bizarre. Why record it? Most of the low-level pistoleros, the cartel gunmen doing the dirty work, they lacked the technical know-how or even the inclination to operate recording equipment during something like that.
Good point. And were there issues with the tapes they did get?
Huge issues. They knew or strongly suspected there were 5 tapes made, but the investigation was only ever given 3 of them, and those 3, heavily redacted, sections just completely missing or erased.
So why record it in the first place? And then why hide parts of it if the motive was just simple revenge for the pot fields? It doesn't make sense.
It makes no sense. Which brings us to flaw number 3. The supposed motive itself, the weed.
Rancho Buffalo. It was huge, right? Worth a lot of money.
It was huge, yeah. Generated maybe $100 million a year for the cartel, which sounds like a ton, and it is.
Right.
But compared to their main business, cocaine and heroin trafficking, that was bringing in billions, maybe $3 billion a year total. Rancho Buffalo, the marijuana operation, was relatively low-maintenance side revenue.
So Berrellez questioned why they'd risk all-out war with the U.S. government, killing a DEA agent, over what was essentially a fraction of their income.
Precisely. It seemed disproportionate. Why invite that level of heat for the marijuana bust? Especially when, and this is the really painful irony, Kiki Camarena never actually discovered or raided Rancho Buffalo in the first place.
Wait, what? He didn't?
No. That massive bust was carried out by a different DEA agent, Charlie Lugo, acting on information from an informant. Kiki wasn't involved in that operation at all.
So the entire official story linking Kiki directly to the Rancho Buffalo raid was just false.
Demonstrably false. Kiki was working on drug interdiction, but he was focused on a smaller marijuana field in a different state, Zacatecas. The moment Berrellez confirmed Kiki had nothing to do with Rancho Buffalo, the official narrative completely crumbled.
Which immediately raises the terrifying question. If it wasn't Rancho Buffalo, what did Kiki actually discover that was so dangerous, so threatening, that it warranted kidnapping him, torturing him for days, and ultimately killing him?
That became the central question of Operation Leyenda. To answer it, Berrellez needed someone who was inside the killing house. He managed to cultivate the first and really the only eyewitness account of what happened at Lope de Vega, an informant named Ramon Lira.
And Lira confirmed how brazen the abduction was.
Totally brazen. Confirmed Kiki was snatched by agents from the DFS, the Dirección Federal de Seguridad, that's Mexico's Federal Security Directorate, basically their CIA, FBI equivalent, but notoriously corrupt and deeply intertwined with the cartels.
And they grabbed him in broad daylight, right outside the U.S. consulate.
Right outside the consulate. Unbelievable audacity. Lira then confirmed the horrific details of the torture.
Where did it happen?
In the maids' quarters of the Lope de Vega hacienda. It wasn't a quick beating. It was sustained, methodical torture over days. Kiki was beaten horribly, burned with cigarettes, sodomized with a broom handle. His bones were systematically broken. Drills were used on his skull. It was barbaric.
Designed to get information, not just inflict pain.
Exactly. Focused, sustained interrogation designed to extract every last piece of information Kiki had.
And Lira identified someone crucial in enabling that prolonged torture.
Yes. The central, terrifying figure who made the days-long torture possible, a physician named Dr. Humberto Alvarez Machain.
A doctor was involved.
Machain's role, according to Lira and later corroborated, was essentially to act as an evil paramedic. When Kiki's body started to shut down from the trauma, Machain would step in. He'd administer drugs, specifically injecting lidocaine directly into Kiki's heart.
Oh my God.
And regulate his system, keep him conscious, keep him alive, just long enough for the interrogation, the torture to continue.
That is just beyond comprehension.
The end. How did it finally end?
It ended with pure horror. Kiki and his pilot, Alfredo Zavala, who had also been abducted, were finally killed. Their bodies were taken out to a place called Primavera Park and hastily buried.
And Zavala.
Lira confirmed the final, sickening detail. Zavala was still alive when they threw him into the shallow grave and started burying him.
Unbelievable.
It just demonstrates the absolute bottomless cruelty of the cartels and, crucially, the complicity of those in the Mexican government, like the DFS, who enabled and protected them.
So Lira's testimony, along with others Berrellez developed, it started painting a picture that went way beyond just the cartels and corrupt Mexican officials, didn't it? Way beyond. It pulled back the curtain on what Berrellez came to see as the deepest, most shocking layer of betrayal, direct U.S. government complicity, or at least complicity from elements within the U.S. government.
How did that connection emerge?
Well, Lira and another key witness, George Godoy, who used to be Ernesto Fonseca's bodyguard.
Fonseca, one of the big Guadalajara cartel bosses.
Right. Both Lira and Godoy independently confirmed seeing white American men actively involved with the cartel leadership around that time.
Involved how?
Godoy remembered seeing one American guy installing some kind of suspicious device on a telephone pole near Fonseca's ranch. When he asked Fonseca about it, Fonseca supposedly just shrugged and said the guy was working for us. They called this American Gringo Larry.
Gringo Larry, okay.
Yeah.
Any idea who he was?
He was later identified, Berrellez says, as a man named Larry Harrison who had ties to intelligence circles. And Lira added another really suspicious piece.
What was that?
Lira testified that he was once ordered by his cartel bosses to go retrieve $500,000 in cash from the trunk of a car, $500,000, and deliver it to someone described only as a friend from the DEA.
A friend from the DEA?
Yeah.
Getting $500,000 in cash from the cartel.
That's what Lira claimed he was told. Highly suspicious, obviously. But the absolute seismic shock came with the identification of another non-Mexican figure who was reportedly present inside the Lope de Vega house during Kiki Camarena's interrogation and torture.
Who was it?
Witnesses, including Lira, described a mysterious Cuban man who seemed to be asking questions, maybe even directing things. Berrellez's investigation positively identified this man. It was longtime high-level CIA operative Felix Rodriguez.
Felix Rodriguez?
Yeah.
Felix Rodriguez, Bay of Pigs, Che Guevara.
The very same. Known by the alias Max Gomez in some circles. A legendary, controversial figure in CIA covert operations history, involved in the Bay of Pigs invasion, and famously, personally involved in coordinating the capture and execution of Che Guevara in Bolivia.
So the implication is, A top-tier CIA operative was physically present while a U.S. federal agent was being tortured to death by a cartel.
That's the devastating implication Berrellez uncovered. That's his claim.
Yeah.
That the CIA wasn't just aware, they were involved at some level, potentially guiding the interrogation.
Wow. Okay. And what about that friend from the DEA? Did Berrellez ever figure out who that might be?
He became convinced there was a dirty DEA agent involved, someone being protected by the system, and he believes he found the smoking gun, the proof, within the DEA's own files.
What does he find?
He found a DEA-6 report. Now, for listeners, a DEA-6 is basically an internal administrative report. Agents use them to formalize intelligence, document actions, that kind of thing. It's an official internal record.
Okay. And in this particular DEA-6?
This DEA-6 report that Berrellez found buried in the files actively defended Ruben Zuno Arce.
The owner of the killing house.
The owner of the killing house. The report called Zuno Arce a man of integrity and flat out denied his known extensive ties to the Guadalajara cartel.
Wait. A DEA agent wrote an official report vouching for the guy whose property was used to torture and murder another DEA agent.
Exactly. You see why Berrellez saw this as the ultimate proof of institutional rot. Why would any legitimate DEA agent use an official internal document to try and clear a known high-level narco-politico, especially one directly linked to Kiki's murder, at the very moment the entire agency was screaming for justice?
It makes no sense unless...
Unless that agent was dirty, unless that agent was the friend from the DEA Lyra mentioned, and unless that agent was being protected from within the DEA itself, using the agency's own administrative system to create cover.
So the core question for Berrellez shifted then. It wasn't just who killed Kiki, but why.
Yeah.
Why would elements of the U.S. intelligence community, and maybe even the DEA, protect the killers or be involved?
Exactly. And that leads us back to the money and the dark connection Berrellez makes to the Contra War in Nicaragua.
Okay, connect those dots.
Well, first, Larry Harrison, Gringo Larry, later apparently confirmed directly to Berrellez that, yes, the U.S. government was involved in Kiki's murder in some capacity. That's a huge admission, if true.
Okay.
And then Berrellez remembered the interrogation tapes, even the redacted ones. He recalled hearing Caro Quintero yelling furiously at Kiki, not about marijuana fields, but about his money. Quintero was screaming, "Where is my money?"
Money, not drugs.
Money, not drugs. Berrellez knew from experience cartel kingpins fear losing their cash way more than they fear losing product. Product is replaceable. Huge stacks of cash disappearing. That's personal. That's terrifying to them.
So Berrellez's conclusion, the big political bombshell of his whole story,
is that Kiki Camarena didn't just stumble onto a small weed field investigation that went wrong. He believes Kiki stumbled into something much, much bigger. A financial pipeline. A nexus.
a nexus between what?
Between the Guadalajara cartel's drug money and the CIA. Specifically, he alleges the CIA was using the cartel, perhaps through intermediaries like the Nicaraguan dealer Blandon operating in L.A., to launder cocaine profits.
Launder drug money. Why?
To secretly, unlawfully fund the Nicaraguan Contras. Remember, at that time, Congress had passed the Boland Amendment explicitly banning the U.S. government from funding the Contras war against the Sandinista government.
Right, so the CIA needed off-the-books cash.
Exactly. And Berrellez's theory is that the cartels provided a source for that cash through cocaine trafficking facilitated or at least tolerated by CIA assets. And Kiki Camarena, maybe by following a money trail related to his own cases, inadvertently discovered this massive, illegal U.S. intelligence operation.
So his death wasn't revenge for busting pot fields.
In Berrellez's view, absolutely not. It was a deliberate surgical strike to silence him, to protect this vital illicit funding mechanism for the Contra War. Kiki didn't just threaten the cartel's profits, he threatened a major illegal CIA covert operation.
That is an explosive claim. With the truth seemingly uncovered, at least in his mind, Berrellez got authorization to act, right? The Macayan kidnapping.
He did. He got direct authorization from the top, from Administrator Jack Lawn himself, for the extraterritorial rendition, let's call it what it was, a kidnapping of Dr. Macayan. Bring the evil paramedic back to the U.S. to stand trial for his role in Kiki's torture.
And they pulled it off.
They pulled it off, got Macayan onto U.S. soil. But the political cover Berrellez thought he had, it evaporated the second Jack Lawn retired.
What happened then?
Immediately, the narrative shifted. Berrellez wasn't a hero agent anymore. Suddenly, he was labeled a rogue agent. He was placed under criminal investigation himself by the DEA's own OPR, the Office of Professional Responsibility.
Investigated by his own agency.
Yes. And get this. The lead OPR investigator assigned to Berrellez' case, a guy named Terry Burke, his previous job, attorney for the CIA.
Oh, come on. You couldn't write that. The irony is just thick.
Unbelievably thick. The pressure on Berrellez became immense and intensely personal. It wasn't just internal. President Bill Clinton got involved publicly.
Clinton, what did he say?
Clinton publicly denounced Berrellez' actions, specifically the Machain kidnapping. So the very idea of a DEA agent kidnapping a Mexican citizen across a border made him want to vomit, threw Berrellez completely under the bus on the world stage.
Wow. And the internal investigation, the OPR interrogations.
Berrellez describes them as pure humiliation, targeted degradation. Remember, this is a decorated American federal agent, a university graduate. But the OPR inspector, a guy named Matthew Marr, apparently treated him like dirt, constantly used the sarcastic, condescending tone, asking him questions in broken Spanish like, "Comprende, señor," speaking to him deliberately as if he were some kind of simple-minded, uneducated criminal, not a fellow federal agent.
Just designed to break him down.
Completely. To reinforce his new status as a total pariah within the system.
And the final insult. While all this is happening, while Mexico is demanding his extradition.
Yeah, Mexico wanted him sent back to face kidnapping charges for the Machain abduction. While that's going on, Berrellez actually receives the DEA's highest honor, the Administrator's Award, for his work on Operation Leyenda.
Wait, they gave him the award while investigating him and Clinton was denouncing him?
Yes. But it wasn't presented in some big public ceremony, no glory. It was handed to him quietly, almost hostilely, in a private meeting that felt more like a dismissal. It was the ultimate symbol of his complete abandonment by the very government he'd risked everything for.
So the institutional cover-up, as he sees it, was complete. What happened to all the evidence he gathered? The stuff about Felix Rodriguez, the CIA, the dirty DEA agent, the DEA 6 report.
Vanished. Utterly vanished. Berrellez describes it vividly. All the hard evidence, the polygraph results pointing to Rodriguez, the detailed witness testimonies naming names and connections, that crucial DEA 6 report defending Zinoars, everything just disappeared into what he calls a big black hole.
Never seen again.
Never used in subsequent prosecutions, never released publicly, never followed up on by official investigators as far as he could tell. Just gone, wiped from the official record.
So this betrayal, this complete institutional abandonment, it must have been crushing for him personally.
Absolutely crushing. It led him to take early retirement at age 50. He felt like a total pariah, damaged goods. He says the only job offer he got was to go down to Panama and train local cops.
Panama.
Yeah, which he bitterly compared to sending a 5-star chef to flip burgers at McDonald's. He felt it was a total waste of his skills and experience. He even nicknamed that whole posting Dingler's Folly after the disastrous French attempt to build the canal there. Just failure and exile in his mind.
But the professional cost, as bad as it was, wasn't the worst part, was it?
No. Not even close. The deepest tragedy, the one that truly broke him, was personal. His relentless focus on the job, the constant danger, the prolonged absences. It had fractured his family life beyond repair.
And it led to?
It culminated in the devastating suicide of his oldest son, known as Pinky. Yeah. And his son's final, just heartbreaking words, apparently witnessed by his own young child, Pinky's son, were simply, "Nobody loves life."
Oh my God, that's unbearable.
And that moment, Berrellez is very open about this. It just killed him spiritually. He says he plunged into aimless, deep alcoholism, felt like he'd become one of the walking dead he used to see in crack houses during his undercover days. Just numb, lost.
But he hit rock bottom.
He hit absolute rock bottom down in Panama City. Despairing, drunk, feeling completely worthless, he walks into this clearly filthy, unsanitary tattoo parlor. He decides to get a tattoo, knowing full well the massive risk of contracting something serious like AIDS or hepatitis from the dirty needles.
Was he trying to?
He admitted later it was a conscious, dark calculation. He figured if the test for those diseases came back positive afterwards, he would kill himself. He said he just wanted to go see Pinky. The shadow, La Sombra, that had haunted him since that shooting in Riverside, it had finally almost completely consumed him.
How did he pull back from that? What saved him?
It wasn't finding justice, ironically. It was finding connection, finding purpose again. He started focusing on helping his grandson, little Hector.
Pinky's son. The boy who saw his father die.
That's the one. The boy was understandably struggling, getting into trouble with gangs, skipping school, and Berrellez realized he needed to step up, be the father figure he perhaps couldn't be for Pinky because of the job.
So he focused on him.
He did something he couldn't do for himself earlier. He reached out for help. He got his grandson into counseling, got him into boxing to channel his anger. He turned his focus entirely toward family, toward healing that generational wound in his own way. That's what started to bring him back.
And eventually he started talking.
Publicly.
Yeah, years later, around 2013. The statute of limitations on potential kidnapping charges for the Machain rendition had run out in Mexico. The threat of extradition was finally gone. He felt free, or maybe just compelled, to finally speak the truth as he saw it. Miedo a la verdad, the fear of the truth, was gone.
And he timed it with something significant. He did. He granted this explosive interview, I think it was with Fox News, right around the time Rafael Caro Quintero was surprisingly released from prison in Mexico on a technicality.
Quintero, one of the main guys implicated in Kiki's murder.
Exactly. And Berrellez' analysis in that interview was pure, uncut Berrellez.
Yeah.
He hammered home Kiki's original ignored insight. You have to chase the money, not the drugs. That's the key.
And he didn't hold back on the U.S. complicity angle.
Not at all. He stated flat out publicly that U.S. officials were complicit in Kiki's death. And his reasoning was stark. The CIA was the source. They were there. Point blank.
Wow. The backlash must have been intense.
Oh, absolutely explosive. He said friends, former colleagues were calling him up immediately, basically saying, Hector, have you lost your Fing mind? What are you doing?
But he didn't care anymore.
Apparently not. Having faced down his own demons, stared into the abyss after Pinky's death, and found some measure of peace, he just no longer feared the repercussions of telling his story.
This quest for public truth, it led him to interact with Hollywood too, right? With the Narcos series.
It did. Initially, the production team for the Netflix series Narcos, specifically for the Narcos. Mexico season, focusing on Kiki Camarena, they were apparently thrilled to talk to him. He was the lead investigator, an invaluable source.
But they didn't end up using his version of events.
No. Ultimately, they sidelined his account. They told him, according to him, that he was a very polarizing character, which is kind of code for your story makes powerful people uncomfortable.
And Berrellez has been critical of the show since.
Very critical. His public critique of Narcos, Mexico, is scathing. He basically accuses the series of actively participating in the ongoing institutional cover-up by choosing to fictionalize crucial moments.
Like what specifically?
He points to this completely fabricated scene where Kiki is supposedly given a break from his brutal torture to sit down and have a cordial dinner with Felix Gallardo.
That didn't happen.
Of course not. It's absurd. It fundamentally undermines the reality of Kiki's horrific suffering, the barbarity of his captors, and the context of why he was being tortured. Berrellez argues that by fictionalizing the torture, making it seem less horrific, and simultaneously kind of glamorizing the kingpins, making them cool anti-heroes, the show does a massive disservice to Kiki Camarena's legacy. And worse, it continues to obscure the real uncomfortable political corruption involving U.S. agencies that Berrellez insists he uncovered.
So his final take on the whole war on drugs is pretty bleak.
Profoundly cynical, utterly bleak. He concludes the entire decades-long conflict has been a catastrophe, not just for Mexico, which it devastated, but for the United States, too.
Also for the U.S.
He argues it created generations of drug-addicted Americans, fueled the rise of violent gangs in U.S. cities. All while, and this is his key point, elements within the U.S. government were secretly benefiting from the illegal drug profits, funneling that dirty money into illegal, covert operations like supporting the Contras.
And his view of Mexico today.
He believes Mexico is essentially a failed state, governed by an inept, deeply corrupt kleptocracy, where the real power doesn't lie with the elected officials in Mexico City.
Well, with the cartels.
But with the cartel leaders. They are the true shadow government officials. And he points to recent events as proof. Things like the arrest of Genaro Garcia Luna,
Mexico's former top security chief.
Mexico's equivalent of the FBI director, basically. Arrested in the U.S. for being on the Sinaloa cartel's payroll for years while supposedly fighting them.
Incredible.
And that time, the Sinaloa cartel literally forced the Mexican military to release El Chapo's son, Ovidio, after they briefly captured him. The cartel laid siege to the city, threatened military families, and the government backed down. That, for Berrellez, showed exactly who holds the real power.
But personally, despite all this darkness, he's found some kind of peace.
It seems so. He writes about finding transcendence not through the badge or through exposing conspiracies anymore, but through simpler things. Through faith, through his family, especially his grandson, and through working with horses, training horses.
Coming back to the cowboy identity.
Exactly. Finding quiet fulfillment as a vaquero, a cowboy. He says his ultimate goal now is just to radiate light. To live by the principle la luz desplaza la sombra, the light displaces the shadow, trying to overcome the darkness that defines so much of his life and career. #outro.
So this deep dive into Hector Berrellez' memoir, The Last Narc, it really gives you this incredibly detailed, often gut-wrenching account of profound institutional failure.
It pulls back the curtain on layers of alleged corruption that, according to him, span from the lowest levels of the Mexican Federal Police and the DFS,
Right.
all the way up to powerful figures within the CIA and, disturbingly, even potentially within the DEA itself.
And for Berrellez, the official story of Kiki Camarena's murder, the simple revenge for Rancho Buffalo story, it wasn't just a mistake or bad intelligence. He sees it as a deliberate, convenient lie.
Yeah, a lie specifically constructed and maintained to protect something much bigger, a massive, unlawful U.S. intelligence operation funding the Contras.
It reveals just a profound level of betrayal, doesn't it? From potentially a fellow DEA agent writing reports to clear a narco.
Right.
All the way up to a U.S. president publicly condemning the very agent who cracked the case, labeling him a rogue. It cost Hector Berrellez his career, his reputation, and as we heard, very nearly his life and sanity.
Yeah, the personal cost was immense. But it's interesting how Berrellez ends his memoir. He's not totally consumed by anger over the conspiracies anymore. He seems to be searching for some kind of resolution outside of these failed institutions.
How so?
He recounts this poignant moment. A mother, mourning her own son who had died in the cartel violence, approached him once. And she said something really simple but profound to him.
What did she say?
She said, "Algún día, cuando todos amemos a nuestros hijos más que nada, todo cambiará."
Someday, when we all love our children more than anything, everything will change.
Exactly. And that leaves us and leaves you listening with a really provocative final thought to consider.
After decades of institutional failure, political maneuvering, government cover-ups, and just endless, horrific bloodshed in the name of this war on drugs.
Could it be that simple? Could that fierce, unconditional love for our children, the desire to protect the next generation above all else, could that actually be the only force truly capable of disrupting this deadly, self-perpetuating cycle that governments and institutions have so clearly failed to stop?
Something to think about.